For the last couple of years, the big, scary question about AI has always been the same. Is a robot going to take my job? Well, it turns out a massive new study suggests we might have been asking the wrong question. The real immediate threat isn't some wave of mass unemployment. No, it's something way more subtle and honestly, maybe even more damaging for the future of work. All right, let's get into it.
This quote from the research paper, man, it just hits the nail on the head. The data is showing us that generative AI isn't really causing huge layoffs for people who are already established in their careers. What it is doing is quietly, almost invisibly, erasing the on-ramp, that very first job that gets you onto the career ladder.
And look, this isn't just some vague feeling people have. This number right here is the smoking gun. It's a 7.7% drop in the number of junior employees at companies that adopt generative AI. And that's within just 18 months. This one stat is basically the canary in the coal mine, telling us that the way careers get started is fundamentally changing right now. So, what is going on here exactly? Well, the study gives it a name: seniority bias technological change. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea behind it is actually super simple and really powerful. Basically, AI is reshaping the entire workforce, but it's doing it from the bottom up.
Here's how it works. AI is getting really, really good at all those routine, entry-level tasks that new graduates used to spend their first couple of years learning. This is great for senior employees because it makes them way more productive. But it also means companies just don't need to hire as many junior people to do that work anymore. So, and this is the key, it's not about firing people. It's about not hiring them in the first place.
Now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's a pretty bold claim. How can they be so sure? Well, this isn't just a small survey. This conclusion comes from an absolutely massive, incredibly detailed study that looked at the U.S. job market on a scale we've just never seen before. To get these answers, the researchers analyzed an unbelievable amount of data. We're talking about the anonymous resumes of 62 million workers from across nearly 285,000 different companies in the U.S.
And to figure out which companies were actually using AI, they dug through 245 million job postings. This is where their whole method gets really, really clever. See, instead of just asking companies, hey, are you using AI? They got smart. They identified the AI adopters as the companies that were actively trying to hire people for roles that would integrate AI into their day-to-day business. By comparing those companies to the ones that weren't hiring for those roles, they could isolate the direct impact AI was having.
Okay, so we've got the big picture, fewer junior jobs. But who, specifically, is feeling the heat the most? When you actually dig into the numbers, a much more complicated and honestly surprising picture starts to emerge. This really is the core of it all. On one side, junior roles are seeing a pretty significant drop. But on the other side, senior roles are totally stable, and in some cases, they're even growing. It's like, for an experienced person, AI is a new tool. But for an entry-level task, AI is a replacement. But the story gets even more specific than that.
You'd probably assume that this trend would hit graduates from less prestigious universities the hardest, right? But that's not what the data shows at all. The reality is way more interesting, and it reveals this really distinct U-shaped curve.
Now this is fascinating. Look at who's getting squeezed the most. Graduates from the top elite universities, they saw a pretty small negative impact. Same for those from non-selective schools. The group that got hit the hardest, it's the graduates from mid-tier universities, right there in the middle. It seems like they're the ones competing for those professional jobs where the entry-level tasks are being automated away the fastest.
And of course, this isn't happening everywhere equally. The effect is way more pronounced in certain industries, like wholesale and retail trade. And that makes sense, right? A lot of the entry-level jobs in those fields are made up of routine tasks that are just perfect for the new AI tools to handle.
So, let's zoom out. What does this all mean for the future? We're not just talking about a tougher job market for a couple of years. We could be looking at a fundamental weakening of the entire career ladder, and that has huge long-term consequences for everyone, for workers, for companies, and for society as a whole. If you're just starting out, this is a massive challenge. Those well-worn paths into a career are getting narrower, making it tougher than ever to get your foot in the door and gain that crucial experience. It puts this incredible pressure on new graduates to show up with something more, not just skills, but those uniquely human abilities like creativity and critical thinking that can work with AI instead of competing against it. And if you're a company, you might think, hey, this is great, more efficiency. But it's a huge, long-term gamble. If you stop hiring and training junior talent, where are your next leaders and senior experts going to come from? You could be creating a massive talent gap for yourself just a few years down the line.
And this has major ripple effects for all of society, too. It raises really serious questions about inequality between generations and different educational backgrounds. It might mean we have to totally rethink things, maybe with new incentives for companies that actually invest in entry-level hiring, or by creating modern apprenticeship programs that can bridge that growing gap between college and a first career.
This study gives us the very first really clear, data-driven look at this trend. But it's so important to remember that this story is still being written, and it leaves us with some absolutely crucial questions about what comes next.
So while we have this incredible first snapshot, the movie is far from over. Huge questions are still out there. Is the career ladder as we know it actually going to disappear, or will it just transform in something we don't recognize yet? Are companies shifting to promoting more people from within instead of hiring outside? And what on earth does this all mean for wages and people's ability to move up in the world over the next decade? These are the critical things we have to watch now.
And that really leaves us with the final big thought to chew on. As AI keeps changing pretty much everything about how we work, we really have to ask ourselves, what does a career even look like when there's no starting line?